gentlemen. Can I thank all of the mayors and deputy mayors and delegates that joined us for the Mayor's Walk this morning. It was a picture-perfect morning in Brisbane, and it was just lovely to have you all out there and sharing the fresh air this morning. Last night we had a great dinner. We had the mayors and young professionals, which was a great opportunity for engagement for our future leaders, giving them the opportunity to mix with and share ideas with mayors and deputy mayors, and I thank you all for coming to that dinner as well. Well, day two, and an exciting day lies ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure this morning to introduce to you the second of our keynote speakers. He's a man who's been a great friend of Brisbane. He was here in the lead up to the G20 in an event called the Global Cafe, and his name is S.Y. Lau. The city of Brisbane has made S.Y. Lau an honorary citizen during the course of this Asia Pacific City Summit. But S.Y. Lau oversees the Tencent online media group, which includes Tencent News Portal, Tencent Video, Tencent Weibo, Tencent Weishi, and mobile and media products. Tencent is the most profitable internet company in China. In 2015, and in fact just a very short time ago, S.Y. Lau was named and awarded the World Media Person of the Year by the Cannes Lion Festival of Creativity. He also holds a special role, as I mentioned earlier, in our city now as an honorary ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, will you join with me in welcoming S.Y. Lau.
Very good morning. That was a very kind introductions from Lord Mayor. Distinguished communities of mayors from Asia Pacific, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow citizens of Brisbane, a very good morning to you. I am very, very honored on behalf of my company, Tencent, to be here today to share the stories about how internet has actually played a pretty significant role in helping cities develop in China in probably the last decade as the most important benchmark. Now, this is my second visit to these beautiful cities of Brisbane. And since my appointment as the honorary ambassadors of this beautiful city, I suddenly found myself to actually have developed that sense of familiarity, as well as the sense of belonging here, because I find that Brisbane to be somewhat pretty similar to the cities of Shenzhen, your sister city, and also the locations of Tencent's headquarters back in China. If you were to look at the cities of Shenzhen and city of Brisbane, both are cities located in the east part of the respective countries. Both are near the sea and share a very similar economic vitality. Both are visionary centers with mayors of great visions for the respective cities, addressing high technology as a key to development needs of the cities. And both are cities with highest urbanization rates in the respective countries of Australia and China. In my humble opinion, these are very, very convincing reasons as to why these two cities became sister cities way back in the year of 1992. Now, having said that, Shenzhen is a city with 10.78 million residents, which is about 5 times the numbers of our fellow citizens in Brisbane. And this significant disparity is not only the main difference between the two cities, but also what makes Shenzhen one of the leading cities in China. I had the privilege to have breakfast with the Vice Mayor of Shenzhen this morning at the Hilton Hotel, and His Excellency was sharing with me about the great plans that the city is having forward into the future. Now, indeed, it is people. It's always about people. And in the context of Shenzhen, lots of people, which have actually built Shenzhen from an idea in a governmental white paper into how it is today. And what's even more fascinating that we found is that these people who live here, they were not even born actually in Shenzhen. Now we can see that 7 out of 10 people that live in Shenzhen today are migrants from other cities. We have a communities of mayors from Asia Pacific today in our audience today. All of us realize that urbanizations and migrations are huge factors in our day-to-day operations. Now, what you see in the next chart is the daily size of employees living work at Tencent building in our headquarters in Shenzhen. Every single day, we would need a total of 136 company shuttle buses to commute 13,000 people between their homes and their office, simply because only less than 2% of our Tencent employees were actually born in the city of Shenzhen. Now, these modern nomads, if we could have a term for it, are dreams seekers whose dreams are purely fixated on the living and working in the major cities of China. Now, this brings me to the words of wisdom by the first president of European Council, whom famously said, and I quote, "The Chinese dream was primarily be an urban dream." Mr. Van Rompuy clearly understood that the youth of China have dreams that cannot be realized anywhere else in the country except in the urban areas. And it is this very dream, the absolute desire of the people to improve oneself, but actually goes beyond the boundaries of self-capability that actually built Shenzhen as a testimony in China's urbanization story and history. But, ladies and gentlemen, the stories of Chinese urbanization is not just about the story of a single city or a few other major mega cities in China for that matter. It is about shaping the entire nation, as it became clear that the formula for nation building relies heavily on the developments of our cities that began firstly from the west part of the country to the east, and now, as history has shown us, is actually back from the east to the west. Now, this typical route that a migrant still follows today, from the rural west to the urban east, the route has been traveled by millions. No, I stand corrected, to be traveled by hundreds of millions during the past 3 decades. And what might be the results? Today, we see that 4 mega cities, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, stand proudly tall, together comprise barely 0.34% of the total areas of China, but are now home to 5.09% of the total population. And that is 15 times greater than the percentage of land that the cities actually occupy. Now, on a nationwide level, as stated in year 2014 by Premier Li Keqiang, 94% of the population lives in the eastern part of the country on only about 43% of the land. Now, there can be no possible doubt as to why such highly concentrated resources can never be fully adequate to meet the demands placed upon them. Well, please do not understand this statement as a criticism, because for all the problems that it brings with it, urbanization also brings hope, as urbanization is a powerful driver in the booming developments of China. As you can see from this chart, economic growth goes very, very high up in perfect synchronizations with the urbanization process. But still, societal problems, For example, the lack of resources, the difficulty faced by the new managements of the cities, the rising cost of living, the cultural conflict felt by the new migrants, etc., and etc., are still very much alive in China, just as they have existed during the development stages of all mega cities around the world. But in China, that similar problem seems to be actually much severer. And why is that? Well, because not only have China or Chinese megacities grown up at such an incredibly fast pace, but also that these megacities are extremely, almost unimaginably large. Just visualize, if you can, the entire populations of Australia, 23 million people to be exact, packed together in a cities of size 16,800 square kilometers, which is around 8 times the size of New York City, 10 times of London, 18 times the size of Berlin, or closer home, a land area twice the size of the city of Brisbane. Now, once again, think of the entire populations of Australia packed into 2 Brisbanes. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a city that we call Beijing, which is one of the largest cities in Asia. Now, I hear people laughing at the back. Well, this is what it really matters. This is what it really matters. According to DBS, of all the 37 super cities that the world will eventually have by year 2025, 22 are expected to be in Asia. Now, the problems that urbanizations brings in China are not just problems of China. They are and will continue to be problems, challenges, and also opportunities for the entire Asia-Pacific regions. The Chinese dreams will primarily be an urban dream, but finding methods to deal effectively with the bottlenecks created by urban development will soon be, by extension, a key component of achieving the entire Asia-Pacific dream. And from our point of view, it is a dream to be realized with the applications of internet and technology. Now, am I suggesting that the internet and technology are to be solely responsible for the realization of such mega dream at a broad stage? Certainly not. It would be foolish of me to even think about it. We are obviously not the only factor on this side of the development equations, but the internet, technology, will be an elevator of problems, and more importantly, an agent of change in the urbanization process, especially in the East to West movement to come. In the year 2011, for the very first time, more than half of China's populations were urban dwellers. But 2 years earlier, more than half of all internet users in China had already adopted the mobile internet as a basic structures of life. Now, from our perspectives, these 2 fundamental facts are not entirely unrelated or irrelevant, but actually intertwined. They both indicate that urbanizations and internet development in China is maturing. That maturation is a core condition for the convergence between information highway and traditional industries. Therefore, using the internet to drive urbanization into the next phase of city development has become possible. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please watch this video which illustrates my point clearly.
In China, by connecting everything, the internet is bringing new lifestyles to this old Oriental civilization. It is becoming normal that the media habits of Chinese people continue to change dramatically. The growing popularity of mobile devices is driving the lives of the Chinese people online. 9 out of 10 Chinese internet users are hooked onto mobile. Order a meal. Call a taxi. Shop online. Zero in at a house. Nail care service at your door. And even engage in TV shows. Digital device has become a necessity of life, rather a way of life. It is connecting people with services, with devices, and practically with everything. The great quantitative changes are leading to amazing qualitative changes thanks to the connectivity. This is modern China to you, a digital China.
Well, 3 years ago, no one in China had heard about the phrase Internet Plus. But at the end of year 2013, Tencent became the first company that articulated the concept, and finally, 2 years later, after long periods of preparations and warming up, we are glad to see that Internet Plus was officially announced as a national strategic directions with fundings of 6.4 billion in government funding. It is believed that the Internet Plus strategy will dramatically trigger multiple changes and developments in the whole nation, including contributing to urbanization going forward. Now, let's examine what specific role Internet Plus will play in this endeavor, as it helps the process of transforming inefficiency within cities into smart cities. Just like many cities around the world, some of the main problems or challenges in China's mega cities are the inefficiencies of urbanization, as described rightfully so in a report from the World Bank. Firstly, there's the inefficiency resulted from the usage of resources, and secondly, the meteoric rate of economic development created by urbanization becomes unsustainable due to the diminishing effects of the benefits of population growth. And finally, the third inefficiency is about the low rates of inclusion in the benefit systems for immigrants. Now, Internet Plus, as we have discovered, can play a huge role, contributing role in alleviating all of these problems areas. For example, the internet as a new infrastructure helps to optimize and allocate existing resources in the transportation sectors in China. Now, there are 66,000 taxis in Beijing, 5 times more than the amount of cabs in New York City. Now, however, very frequently, people in Beijing today still couldn't hail a taxi when they needed them most. And why is that? Because the fare structures of taxi service is very low. Beijing is a very large city, as we mentioned just now, with unfortunately terrible traffic jams, just like many other mega cities in the world. Now, traveling a long distance at rush hours, for example, will simply make taxi drivers losing money. Therefore, they would rather drive around empty in search of fares that can actually create a profit. This is a huge waste of resources for both the drivers and also the passengers. Many parties have tried to improve the situations by elevating the fare structures for the taxi drivers, by revising the salary structures of taxi drivers, by even strengthening punishment requirements for refusing to accept riders. Unfortunately, none of those ideas work pretty well in China. After all, these people, decent, hardworking folks, they are in a business to make money, not to lose money. Now, when Internet Plus came about, it managed to relieve some of these pressures and inefficiency. One of the apps that we had in China, which Tencent has invested as well, Didi Dache, is a Chinese versions of a taxi hailing service, which enables users to easily call a taxi and pay the taxi fare with WeChat with just a few clicks on the mobile phones. But it's actually more than a service beneficiary to the passengers, as we have seen, as it has a more advanced suite of functions, if you like, compared to its peers. Customers must inform the taxi drivers of their destinations in advance of pickup so that the drivers can decide whether to accept or not to accept the order. It also allows the driver to plan the best route in advance and can let the driver know of any other potential fares within that destination, so that guy can be an accountant while on the views. Now, this approach actually greatly improves operationally efficiency, which lowers the empty run rate and distance, raises the efficiency of road resources, and reduces pollution as well. Chain reactions of such sort are quite meaningful in creating a win-win situations among businesses, people, and the society. Another example of how the internet can help boost sustainable economic growth is via innovation to stimulate consumptions. Now, take what we call as a O2O, or online to offline services for that matter. Now, let's take the food and beverage industry as an example. The growth rates of that industry has been slowing for the past 5 years in China. That is until multiple deliveries of APPs and reservations APPs came along. Now, these services provided by the APPs are not complicated, but are very, very detail-oriented. Examples include making recommendations according to users' locations and taste buds, sending reservations, reminders, social elements, communication, etc., all play in one. Now, these APPs attempt to fulfill a specific needs of the customers individually, which is the most important attributes of consumption upgrade of the Chinese people. Having said that, we do know that the fundamental force driving the upgrades in consumption is the increase in personal income, meaning that the problems of unemployment is what needs to be resolved before there can be a more meaningful increases in consumption in totality. Now, once again, we see that the internet creates a new employment model via empowerment of entrepreneurships back in China. This year, Tencent has created or established the Innovation Center for the Mass, which is an incubator for small startups who need funds and facilities. Such incubators make starting a business for any owners of business less risky, less difficult, and the young entrepreneurs can live in a quality life while still pursuing their dreams. By the end of this year, Tencent will have 25 innovation centers across the whole nation, offering over 500,000 square meters of space for aspiring entrepreneurs. And finally, Internet Plus also increases the efficiencies of social management and public services, making government less visible in areas that you shouldn't be visible, but also making public services much more easy to access. Not only entrepreneurs, enterprises, but governmental administrations and public departments are seizing that opportunities offered by the digital revolution, digital technology, and the mobilities of internet by implementing new social management systems and processes. For example, the Chinese government at all levels offers services through more than 40,000 official accounts in Tencent's Weixin platform, which is the sister APPs for WeChat in China. Now, please watch this video, and we are very happy to share with you how those 40,000 virtual assistants actually drive improvements and enhancements in many areas of life in China.
Give me that swing, 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 give me that
exciting. It makes me want to dance. You know what, ladies and gentlemen, this is no Twilight Zone. It is certainly not Fantasy Island. You know, when I see these little so-called video clips put together by my team, I almost wanted to take a selfie myself. You know? When you have 600 million people in a nation as big as China, all well-connected, all self-righteously want to improve their lifestyles, all using smartphone at the most affordable prices, and then came along WeChat. So this is what happened. And something that I think we feel very proud of, and something that we also see pressing pressure for us to see how do we innovate ourselves to the next level. Now, moving on to something which we called the new mega cities burst into existence where people are originally from. What it basically means is that it is not through immigrations that urbanization takes place, but through the locally emergent new cities. This year, the Chinese government plans to encourage 100 million rural residents to relocate to cities other than the one big eastern ones. It's like putting 5 Australias into a new place. The answer is simple, because mega cities on the eastern coast have gradually become saturated after 30 years of urbanization. Now, obviously, the goal of 100 million relocations cannot be achieved by following the old west to east model. Now, the key to resolving these difficulties is to encourage mega cities to spring up where the people are and try to make sure that the speeds of urban development does not outpace the enhancements to the city's urban management capabilities. And that requires a good infrastructure system, which normally would take massive investment. But now, with the idea of Internet Plus, there is another way out, another kind of a fundamental investment, what we call the digitalized city development, which is vital to the expansions of a modern city in conceptual terms and in reality terms. Now, through the developments of digitalized cities, we will be able to leverage the wisdoms of big data and innovative services inspired by Tencent's smart cities concept. For instance, Chongqing, and I'm glad that I know that the representative from the cities of Chongqing is sitting among the audience today. Chongqing is a western city in China that is another sister cities of Brisbane. It is worth noting that Chongqing has the largest urban populations in China, one single city having a population of 29.91 million. One city, 29 million people. And still, rural immigrants from the Midwest of China continue pouring into that city. You can imagine it has certainly created a heavy burden on public services and urban management. Now, in order to create a capable and functional mega city with such a growing population, the local authorities have employed the internet as a strong instrument to support urban management. For example, within 5 years, Chongqing will equip all traffic entry points with nearly 1,000 smart traffic monitors, all linked to the city's transportation platforms, cloud computing, and big data analytics capabilities. They will collect data every single day on thousands of vehicles, through which the authorities can provide real-time traffic monitoring and management. Now, this is just one of the many activities that the cities of Chongqing is doing today. It's no surprisingly, today Chongqing is one among the 351 cities in China to actively embrace the concepts of Internet Plus. Chongqing's ranking in internet access is far higher than its ranking in per capita GDP. It's not about just quantity, but also quality. Problems arising from urbanizations are not just urban problems, as we realize. Now, if we understand that urbanization as a means to bring enhanced well-being to people, no matter whether they live in urban or rural areas, then the benefits of urbanization must be extended down to those who are living in the rural areas as well. Now, let me show you what is happening in the mountainous areas of Guizhou province, a western village named Libing, which is about 2,500 kilometers away from the city of Beijing. Let's play the video.
Tongguan is unenlightened and poor. Due to the impact of China's market economy, the younger generation has to migrate to urban areas to earn a living. The dramatic changes in family structure come in the way of local economic development, not to mention inefficient communication, lack of information, cultural loss, and the deepening of the digital divide.
冇有生打工，会俺都来，帮着人当人，我该我帮你着生活，我该香港。
咱们村呢，大概2000人这样吧。开会呀，那大喇叭喊，还要挨家挨户上门去喊，走亲访友的、上山劳动的都喊不到的，远了。
做茶呢，当然辛苦嘛。如果遇到茶叶的淡季的话，我们的茶叶就只能放在冷库里面，或者就是低价出售嘛。哎，卖不出去就白干嘛。
我们侗族的语言是不能用文字表达的。我和我老公谈恋爱的时候，就是以歌传的情。 唱的什么歌，那就不能告诉你啦。现在的年轻人嘛，不用唱歌谈恋爱了。
On November 12, 2014, Tencent Charity Foundation landed its We Country program in Tongguan, connecting the remote village with the internet. Nearly 100 villagers receive smartphones for free, signaling the era of rural internet all set to take off here. The elderly people and children left behind can communicate with their loved ones in a real-time manner.
他来通知，远门人、大门板、后博物馆给谁？后博物馆给谁？
Village dynamics can be disseminated in a much more extensive and efficient way. Agro-products are exposed to a much broader market. The endangered Kegal louse also finds its way of inheritance. Teaching how to fish is any day better than simply giving away fish. Bridging the digital gap between urban and rural areas, Tencent's We Country program builds a new way of charity based on internet thinking. The positive import of the internet culture expedites the export of the nation's value effectively, revitalizing the economy of the old village and assuring the inheritance and continuation of its historical civilization from generation to generation. Tongguan, one of the millions of villages in China, is being changed gradually for the better thanks to the internet. But this is just the beginning, a first spark of the great many changes to come.
Don't just fall in love with the qualities of production in this video, but admire the passion, the spirits of the people that want to upgrade their standards of living in a remote city. When I watch this video, I will be continuously astonished, because I kept asking myself the same questions again and again. Is that if there was any difference between their current lifestyles and those that live in the city's residents. But of course, various conclusions will come to mind. But one of the obvious answers that I'm convincing myself is that there are indeed very little differences except the difference in geographic. Usually, when we think of the concepts of modernization, we associate it with industrialization, which with it accompanying disregards of habitats and green spaces. But in this case, it doesn't have to be the case. Modernization is a new possible event, is even in a context of a new pastoral settings of mountains, rivers, and green fields. And that is what exactly the path Li took for modernization. It is not one iota less indirect than it originally was. But the inhabitants are also enjoying the benefits brought by modernizations and urbanizations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope we have managed to sketch out a vivid and detailed pictures of the Chinese urbanization process. Its successful implementation is a dream well shared by the whole nations, and we believe that the Chinese urbanization journey is a unique model as it is at the very crossroads of melding the best experience from the current model with new technology thinking and therefore galvanizing potentially a nation into a new model altogether. Apparently, experiencing and experimenting can coexist in a pretty well manner. Experimenting and experiencing, that's a quote that I got it from daughter of one of our friends back in China. Well, now, we have nevertheless observed that for this hybrid model to take shape, a few fundamental factors or drivers must be in place, which serve as the essential infrastructure for urbanizations. First of all, I think we all know that the public and private sector has to cooperate in such a seamless manner as possible. Embedding the internet into all aspects of the society. I think everybody talks about Internet of Things. Yesterday there was a topic about Internet of Things, but the world is turning from Internet of Things to Internet of everything, right? So to do that into all aspects of the society is the first step of a sustainable model of urbanizations. And it requires full governmental support. The fact that we have all the mayors here today, I think we have great support in Asia Pacific. Now, the internet is of no less important to urbanization than electrification was to the second industrial revolution, which lit up the whole world and let us move into the era of modernity. The internet is the infrastructures of the future, and so the necessary levels of investment and management will definitely require both private sector and governmental cooperations. Secondly, the ambitions of digital urbanization with the internet is not possible without the right sets of talents or people. We must cultivate new talents who can master the skills of necessary for the changes that the future will bring. I was so happy yesterday when Lord Mayor Brisbane shared with me that in this city, with a population of 2 million people, have actually sent so many young adults into programs of coding. Mr. Martin Lau, the president of Tencent, advised my son, who is doing a junior year in university, that doesn't quite matter whether your son or your daughter is majoring in any types of disciplines. We must learn coding, because coding would be the new language of technology and communication into the future. And yet the city of Brisbane has already done that on such a massive scale. And my salute and applause to the mayor. I believe that information technology will become a basic skill required by every citizen. That would be a visionary statement, not only engineers or rocket scientists for that matters. In China, the populations of our post-90s generations are already digital natives. They speak the language of technology. And by providing them now with advanced talents and skills, we can benefit the entire society in the near future and create a new types of spirits in the cities. Finally, there's an absolute need to cultivate, to curate the spirits of entrepreneurship. Cities such as Shenzhen, cities such as Chongqing, the new city spirit has to be so inclusive, more adventurous, and more innovative. Entrepreneurships build the cities, as what we have seen in Shenzhen. More importantly, as witnesses of the entire urbanization process, the residents of the city, no matter if they were born locally, if there are new migrants, shall be able to use information and tools to participate in the actual formations and ongoing developments of the city. They will be the foundation stones of the city. They will seek out new opportunities through innovations and creation, and they will be the new generations of citizens that build themselves, build their pride based on entrepreneurships. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I said earlier that the Chinese dream will primarily be an urban dream, and the urban dream inevitably will be a dream about connections and convergence. The connections and convergence of people and technology of all industries and sectors to achieve one very, very single common goal. And here, we haven't even been talking about conceptual framework, as it is not a dream in the pipeline, but a reality currently taking place in China. Now, let's take a look at this map again. You will realize that every single flashing point in the city, in the picture, represents the cities which have implemented or are about to implement the smart city concept inspired by Tencent. New points, new lights are lit up quite often at an average rate of 2 cities weekly. And with the new emerging cities, we will be able to see clearly that the boundary between the West and the East in the country is gradually blurred. This is one of the Tencent's fundamental beliefs and goals, that through technology and data, everything will be connected. More cities become more livable, spawn more creativity, and add to our wisdom, which will enlighten not only China, but provide insights to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests of the mayors, I thank you for your kind hospitality and your wonderful attention. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Lau. Thanks so much. Lord Mayor, would you join us for a second? And Ms. Lau, if you could just pause for a moment. There's probably one or two questions we might be able to ask. It's such an amazing impact that digital cities have had, but my thought is, how's this change in digital functionality actually changing us as human beings? Yes. Yeah, well, I'm asking both of you. I think in this case, how are we finding the changes to the human?
Well, clearly it's changing our habits. The important thing that we need to remember is that while we have this digital transformation, our normal human desires, our normal human emotions have to still be key factors in the equation, and it's how we integrate our human needs and the digital changes. That's the key challenge that exists for us. And particularly, I think, for young people, learning the human interactions, not using the digital abilities that we have today to be a cop-out for engaging as human beings. That is our big challenge, yes, to make sure that we don't lose that as we undertake the digital transformation.
Certainly the case study examples you gave, Mr. Lau, were very interesting. I found them talking about using technology to actually improve the process, to improve connection between people, improve business processes as well. Mm-hmm. And I think the point is that it's now ubiquitous, it's everywhere. And the fact is that I can pull something out and hop onto WeChat and have a conversation with somebody. Allows me to link in a different way that I would have done in another time.
Well, I suddenly realized that I'm mobile because I've got a mic.
Yes, you do.
Mic on it. So, you know, this is the beauty of mobility. You know, you think about technology and all that. Yeah. Very good question. In fact, one of the things that we both were sharing yesterday, in a world of communities of internet people, we always talk about digital. We always talk about technology. One of the so-called enlightenment that we realized recently, you know, all of us are familiar with the concepts of information technology, IT. And over the past 3 decades, such concept has actually been embedded in all sorts of industries, all sorts of companies. Now, when the problems with the concepts of IT is that when people look at IT, they pay a lot of attention to the concepts of technology without realizing that the real potentials of IT actually rests on the utility of I, which is information. It's very much similar when you have like a lot of so-called big data. Big data only becomes valuable if it becomes better data.
Yes.
And while human race progresses, you call it modernity, you call it urbanization, and etc. Habit has changed. People like to watch NBA, not like that, but like that. So what are you going to do about it? Because that's the way that the world is moving on forward. But I guess as leaders of the industries, as the so-called the trusted leaders of the people, our role is to make sure that we do not let us be left behind the emergence of a new types of so-called infrastructure that could actually collectively bring the living standards of humanity into the next level. I think as an infrastructure provider, I think that's where our focus should be.
Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, would you join me again in thanking Mr. S. Y. Lau, and thanking you all there.